The nightmare in Dallas keeps getting worse. And for the Dallas Mavericks, they got the worst news possible after Kyrie Irving went down with a knee injury. He was going to the basket on a layup attempt and his knee just bent the wrong way. I honestly thought it was a hyperextended knee, which is something that you can come back. It just means that he's gonna miss maybe a couple of weeks. But unfortunately, MRIs came back on Tuesday that Kyrie Irving did indeed tear his ACL and is going to be out for not just the remainder of this season, but a huge chunk of next season. And I mean, credit to Kyrie. I mean, this guy has been so tough in terms of carrying the Mavs ever since Anthony Davis went down halfway into his season debut. He was playing 39 minutes a game, could have been even 40 at times, and I know that he's been carrying the load, but these accumulation of minutes or the heavier workload is not something that attributed to this knee injury in particular. It's just a freak accident and couldn't come at a worst possible time for not just Kyrie but also the Dallas Mavericks. He did make a valiant effort to hobble to the free throw line, make the 2 free throws in something that the late great Kobe Bryant did when he tore his Achilles. And now it's just a long road to recovery for Kyrie Irving. This is a guard that depends on his shiftiness, his ball handling ability, his quickness, and the explosiveness to get to the rim particularly. And obviously an ACL injury is something that you can come back from. It's not quite as devastating as in years past, but the fact that it's coming so late in this season means that he will be missing a large portion of next season. At this point, I'm just not sure what we're gonna get out of Kyrie Irving post ACL surgery, and obviously wish him a speedy recovery, a healthy recovery. This was going to be a big offseason for Kyrie. If he was healthy, he could have absolutely commanded a lot more money if he chose to opt out of his current contract, which he was due $40 million for the upcoming season. But now with this uncertainty, I think it would be really smart for him to just opt in and just have the Mavs pay him to essentially rehab until he's ready to go sometime next year. Looking at what this means for the Dallas Mavericks, imagine last year in June, you are in the NBA Finals, you are obviously outmatched to an all-time great Boston Celtics team, but there's definitely some hope beyond the horizon. You have Luka Doncic, your generational talent. He's only age 25 at that point. He's coming off a great season, and you have Kyrie Irving as his backcourt mate. You have a good front line with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. You have some good wings in PJ Washington, and at this point, you're thinking just run it back, make some tweaks like they did with Klay Thompson. But once Nico Harrison got this terrible idea to offload Luka Doncic not only to just any team but the Los Angeles Lakers and bring in Anthony Davis, who we know, yes, he's a talented two-way player, but we know he's a guy that's always hurt. There's just always something wrong with Anthony Davis. He's just bound to get injured. And right on cue, in his season debut, 2.5 quarters into playing for the Dallas Mavericks, he re-aggravates his abdominal injury, and we haven't seen him since early February. I understand taking a swing, but this is simply GM malpractice. Nico Harrison's gamble has been a massive failure. Selling your franchise's long-term future for a short-term gamble never seemed to make sense, and we're seeing the Mavs pay a hefty price for this recent transaction. In this move, you're betting against the next decade of Luka Doncic's career, and you're hoping that in this 2 to 3 year window with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving that you win a championship. And you're already off to a terrible start. This year is gone. You can count it out at this point. But next year is also looking highly unlikely, because when was the last time that Anthony Davis has been able to play consistent injury-free basketball? It's been a long time, and for him to hold the fort down while Kyrie rehabs for much of this year, which will likely keep him out to around this time next season, just doesn't seem to bode well for next year. So that's out the window. And then this means that you're putting all your eggs in the 2026-2027 window to go all in at that point to hopefully make this deal somewhat redeemable. The Mavs' outlook doesn't look great. They have no draft capital outside of this year's upcoming draft, and this is only fueling the rumors I mentioned earlier about the Dallas Mavericks potentially alienating their fan base to relocate to Las Vegas. We know that the new ownership has big ties to casinos all throughout Nevada, and we know that the NBA is looking into extending and bringing in an NBA franchise to Sin City, but it's hard to do so when you have a lot of things going on. But the easiest option, instead of creating an expansion franchise, is simply have a team relocate. And at this point, Mavs fans are sick and tired of Nico Harrison and his management of their franchise in the Dallas Mavericks. We know that this move in particular has caused a lot of frustration with Mavs fans. They're coming into their stadium chanting "Fire Nico," bringing in signs and bringing in Luka Doncic gear and memorabilia, but now we're seeing that the Mavs franchise is simply alienating them. I mean, we're looking at them raising prices of season tickets by 8 to 10% next season. And for what is that? We already talked about how Kyrie's going to be missing most of the year, and Anthony Davis is likely to get banged up at some point next season. But like I said earlier, this trade is absolutely a disaster, and it's likely going to end up as one of the worst trades in NBA history, as I don't see any future for the Dallas Mavericks. There's no point trying for the play-in tournament. You're the 10 seed right now. Just simply tank the season. Your only way out of this to make it even somewhat redeemable is to get a draft pick that's usable and you can do something with it, because the Sixers are in a similar situation, and we already covered that as well. But if you want to take a look at that, I'll link it in the description. But for the Mavs, at this point, give Anthony Davis the full offseason. Shut him down for the remainder of the year. Let him come back and be healthy, ready to go for 2025, 2026. And hope that he can keep the team afloat while Kyrie recovers. But this window is going to be closing soon, and unless things go somewhat in a positive direction next season, I don't see how Nico Harrison can survive this. Between the Mavs fans rioting at each game and the health of the core group of players for the Dallas Mavericks in question, the Mavs' future looks incredibly bleak, and this is exactly why you don't trade Luka Doncic.